Welcome to True Echo, the channel where real stories meet powerful lessons and hidden truths echo louder than any lie. Today's story will challenge how you see authority, respect, and the power of silent resilience. What if the person you dismissed was the very one who held your future in her hands? What unfolds in this luxury car showroom will shake a company's foundations and reveal the soul of leadership, not through wealth or titles, but through dignity, grace, and transformation. This is one story you won't forget. The Arizona heat shimmered like glass off the pavement as Vanessa Morgan pulled her dusty SUV into the farthest corner of the Sterling Motors parking lot. Scottsdale's sun beat down on the rows of luxury vehicles, each one polished to a mirror-like shine. The dealership glistened like a jewel, and it now belonged to her. She stepped out slowly, dressed not in the power suits she'd worn to boardrooms or investor meetings, but in a simple pale pink cotton dress. Her flip-flops were worn from years of comfort. Her tote was faded canvas, its leather corners scuffed from everyday use. There was no mistaking it, Vanessa had come deliberately unassuming. Because she wasn't just here to visit. She had just purchased Sterling Motors. And today, no one inside knew. She walked with calm steps toward the glossy glass entrance, where laughter and light voices from the front desk floated out like perfume. Inside, air conditioning met her skin, offering cool relief. But the welcome ended there. 3 employees at the reception stopped mid-conversation, their eyes grazing over her attire and instantly slotting her into a mental box: not rich, not important, not worth their attention. Chloe, a blonde receptionist with designer heels and an icy expression, whispered to her colleague, "Another one here for free water and air conditioning." They both laughed softly. Over by the showroom floor, Brandon, one of the top sales consultants, nudged his teammate. "She's probably just browsing. Won't afford anything." Vanessa heard it all, the low snickers, the dismissive glances. But she wasn't here to be acknowledged. She was here to observe. Every reaction, every smirk, every word was being catalogued. And standing at the far end of the showroom was the one person Vanessa had been warned about, Susan Miller, the long-standing manager of Sterling Motors, known for her tight control, strong opinions, and outdated views. Susan spotted Vanessa and approached, clipboard in hand like a weapon. Her blazer was crisp, her steps sharp, and her smile thin. "Can I help you?" she asked, with the kind of tone that meant the opposite. "We only display premium models here." Vanessa nodded with a pleasant smile. "I'd just like to look around." Susan's eyes swept over her again. "Of course," she said, then added as if reading from a script of condescension, "just know that our vehicles require financial pre-approval. And typically, we only offer showroom access to verified clients or those with appointments." Vanessa remained composed. "I understand. May I see that coupe? The black one? I'm afraid it's a limited display model. Guests are only allowed to approach it with staff supervision. I can't let you near it unless you've been cleared." The words weren't just about policy, they were walls. Carefully constructed, quietly fortified, and coldly enforced. Vanessa gave a polite nod and moved away. But behind her, she could feel it. The laughter. The judgment. The heat wasn't just from the sun outside, it was radiating from the stares of those who believed she didn't belong. Vanessa drifted toward the deep blue coupe, the one Susan had forbidden her to touch. Her fingers brushed its hood, tracing the line of the paint like she was reading a story. And that's when she heard it, the sharp click of heels behind her. Susan appeared like a warden, eyes cold. "I said, please do not touch the vehicles unless authorized." A hush fell over the showroom. "You must schedule an appointment and complete our financial process. It's dealership policy," she added, voice rising slightly, as if Vanessa had disturbed the natural order. Vanessa turned, voice steady. "Who has the authority to make that decision?" Susan stiffened. "I do. I'm the manager here." Then, Vanessa replied calmly, "Could you put me in touch with the owner of Sterling Motors?" Susan's eyes narrowed. The owner isn't available. No one expected what happened next. Vanessa smiled, serene and unwavering. From her canvas tote, she pulled out an old phone and dialed. Her voice, now carrying through the entire showroom, was direct. "Hi, Alex. I'm at the dealership. There's a customer service issue. Could you come by?" The silence was deafening. The staff froze. Brandon's smirk disappeared. Chloe paled. Susan's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Vanessa hung up and looked at her calmly. "I'll wait." Suddenly, this wasn't about a customer being rude. This was about a reckoning they never saw coming. The tension inside Sterling Motors clung to the air like thick smoke. No one moved. Even the soft music filtering through the speakers had become background noise to the rising hum of uncertainty. Vanessa stood in the middle of the polished showroom like an immovable force, calm, quiet, unreadable. But it was Susan who now looked out of place, her clipboard trembling slightly in her grip, the heels she had once strutted in now sounding uncertain as she shifted her weight. Chloe broke the silence with a whisper. She really called someone. Tyler, who had been silent most of the time, muttered, "What if she really does know the owner?" Susan heard them both. She tried to steel herself, but her thoughts were spinning. The name Alex wasn't just some bluff. Alex Thompson was the regional director, and more than that, he was the direct representative of the dealership's new ownership. Susan hadn't yet met the new owner, only been told they'd be conducting surprise evaluations. Had she just thrown that very person out? Before she could spin another excuse, the automatic doors slid open. Every head turned. A tall man in a navy suit walked in with confident strides. Sharp jawline, silver tie, clipboard in hand. He didn't look around, he walked straight toward Vanessa. "Miss Morgan," Alex said, his voice warm and authoritative. "I came as soon as I could." He shook her hand with a familiarity that made Brandon's jaw drop. Susan's eyes widened. Her blood ran cold. Vanessa smiled gently. "Thanks for coming. I thought it might be helpful if we discussed a few things, in front of everyone." A silence heavier than any before spread through the room. Alex turned to the staff, his tone crisp. "I'd like everyone, all employees, to join me for a quick meeting. Right now." Chloe's papers fluttered to the floor. Tyler stood up so fast his chair screeched. Brandon looked like he'd seen a ghost. Susan didn't move. Vanessa led the way toward the conference room, her flip-flops tapping softly against the tile. Every footstep seemed to echo in the hollow space they'd created through their judgments. Susan followed last, her clipboard clutched like a lifeline. Inside the sleek conference room, employees fidgeted in leather chairs. The usual air of superiority was gone. Replaced by dread, regret, and curiosity. Vanessa took her place at the head of the table. Not the side. Not the corner. The head. Alex stood beside her but remained silent, giving her the floor. Vanessa sat with her hands calmly folded, her eyes scanning each face. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and measured. "My name is Vanessa Morgan," she said. "And as Alex just confirmed, I'm the new owner of Sterling Motors." The words detonated across the room. Susan gripped her chair. Brandon looked down. Chloe audibly gasped. Even Tyler, usually unreadable, pinched the bridge of his nose in disbelief. "I didn't come here today to test your knowledge of our cars," Vanessa continued. "I came dressed like this," she gestured to her dress and sandals, "to see how you would treat someone who didn't look like your typical customer." Her voice was soft, but the sting of her truth was undeniable. And I did see it. All of it. The whispers. The stares. The assumptions. Not just from one person, but from many. And that's not just a customer service issue. It's a culture issue. Susan finally looked up, her eyes rimmed red, but she said nothing. Vanessa let the silence stretch before speaking again. We sell luxury here. But what good is luxury if it's delivered with arrogance, exclusion, and prejudice? Her eyes landed on Chloe. I heard the jokes. Then Brandon. I saw the smirks. And finally, Susan. And I felt the dismissal. No one dared speak. The air had gone still, electrified by accountability. Vanessa's next words hit the heart of the issue. This wasn't just about me. You would have treated anyone in my position the same way. That's why this ends today. Not just the behavior. The mindset. She turned to Alex, who nodded gravely, then added, Sterling Motors must reflect its name, not just in vehicles, but in values. The tension in the room wasn't just from shame, it was from the unraveling of assumptions that had ruled the dealership for years. Employees sat stiff and pale, as if their chairs had turned to stone beneath them. Susan still hadn't spoken. Her clipboard, once her shield, now rested useless in her lap. Vanessa sat forward, eyes locked onto each person. I'm not here to fire anyone, she said. I'm here to offer you a choice. Her voice was gentle, but the gravity in it silenced the shuffle of nervous feet. This team has two paths ahead: continue business as usual, where customers are judged before they even speak, or embrace change, where every person who walks through those doors is treated with dignity, whether they wear Gucci or Goodwill. The room remained quiet. Vanessa reached into her tote and pulled out a small notepad. She flipped it open and began reading. Used car flyer handed to woman without asking her preferences. That was me. Sales reps whispering, assuming she's looking for air conditioning or free drinks. Also me. Manager blocks access to premium model with no basis but appearance. Me again. Chloe looked like she was on the verge of tears. Let me ask you this, Vanessa said, pausing to let the question land. If I had walked in here wearing heels, with a Chanel bag, what would have been different? Would I have been smiled at? Greeted properly? Taken seriously? Still, no one answered. But now, the silence wasn't from denial, it was from recognition. Respect is not a luxury, Vanessa added. It's the minimum. It's the starting point. And if you can't give that to someone who looks like me, casually dressed, black, no appointment, then we have a deeper problem. Susan finally raised her eyes. Her voice cracked. I didn't know who you were. Vanessa looked at her with the calm of someone who'd heard that excuse far too many times. That's the point. And then, something unexpected happened. Susan stood. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. You're right. I judged you. I've worked here for years, and I've let the way someone looks decide how I treat them. I'm sorry. Not just to you, to everyone. A few eyes turned toward her. Chloe swallowed a sob. Brandon rubbed his forehead. Even Tyler, stoic and quiet, shifted in his chair like the floor was suddenly unsteady. Vanessa nodded but said nothing, giving Susan space. Susan continued. I don't want to be this kind of leader anymore. I want to relearn. I want to do better. I don't want to represent a culture that turns people away before they even speak. Vanessa finally spoke. That apology matters. But what you do next, that's what counts. She stood, her presence still as commanding in her simple cotton dress as any CEO in a tailored suit. That's why, starting today, every employee here, from receptionist to manager, will undergo mandatory retraining. Not just on customer service, but on unconscious bias, empathy, and accountability. The announcement struck the room like a gong. I'll be personally involved. We'll start with group workshops. We'll bring in outside experts. And no one, not Susan, not even Alex, is exempt. Alex nodded, backing her fully. I've already arranged for the first session to begin next week, he added. We're not waiting. Vanessa looked around again, softer now, but no less firm. This isn't about punishment. This is about opportunity. A second chance to build something real. Something better. A pause. If anyone here believes they can't support that, then this isn't the place for you. No one moved. Vanessa's words settled over the room like a final verdict, not of doom, but of accountability. The kind that weighs heavy until you're ready to stand up and take responsibility. One by one, eyes lifted. And one by one, the tension cracked, not in defiance, but in reflection. Brandon was the first to speak. His voice was low, but it carried. I was wrong. I treated you like a joke, like you didn't belong, and that wasn't just disrespectful, it was cruel. He glanced at Vanessa, then to his coworkers. I thought I was just being funny, blending in with the team. But I realize now that I was reinforcing something ugly. I don't want to be that person. Chloe, mascara streaking her cheeks, followed. Me too. I laughed when I should have stood up. I whispered instead of welcoming. I judged you the second you walked in. I was wrong. Her hands trembled as she reached for a tissue, but her gaze didn't waver. Thank you for showing us who you really are. Even Tyler, whose aloofness had been a shield, cleared his throat. I didn't say anything rude, but I didn't say anything at all. And that's just as bad. Silence makes room for injustice. Vanessa absorbed every word with quiet grace. She didn't need them to grovel. She needed them to change. Susan sat quietly, no longer the towering manager who ruled with a clipboard and a glare. She looked human now, flawed, humbled, uncertain. I'll take the training, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll lead by example if you'll let me. I've been in this industry for decades and I thought I knew what professionalism meant. But I realize I've been blind to the parts that needed the most growth. Vanessa met her eyes, not with scorn, but with resolve. Leadership isn't about having all the answers, Susan. It's about owning your mistakes and doing better. If you mean what you say, then prove it. Help rebuild this team from the inside out. Susan nodded, lips trembling. Alex stepped forward now, his tone strong, but supportive. This isn't just a single incident. It's a culture shift. And it has to start now. Vanessa didn't just come here to observe. She came here to lead. And I've never seen a leader do it with more courage or heart. He looked around the room. If any of you think this is just about today, it's not. It's about every potential customer we've pushed away. Every opportunity we've missed. Every moment we forgot that respect is the real luxury. There was a pause, not from fear this time, but from realization. From acceptance. Vanessa took a step back, folding her arms gently as she looked at the people who had once sneered at her, now unsure of where they stood. I'm not looking for perfection, she said. But I am looking for effort. For honesty. For empathy. Her voice softened. If you walk into this building tomorrow and still see people as dollar signs, brand labels, or skin color, then this place isn't for you. But, she added, if you walk in ready to listen, ready to change, and ready to treat everyone like they matter, then I'll walk this journey with you. A new energy filled the room. Unsteady, but hopeful. The kind that blooms in the soil of truth. The conference room no longer felt cold and defensive, it felt cracked open, as if a veil had lifted and let real light in. Vanessa remained at the head of the table, her presence not forceful, but deeply rooted, the kind that could anchor a storm. Everyone looked different now. Not in appearance, but in posture. No more crossed arms. No more avoiding eyes. Just people who had finally stopped pretending and started to listen. Alex glanced at Vanessa and gave a subtle nod. He could see it too, this wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was a moment of collective awakening. Vanessa rose from her seat, standing tall without needing heels, designer labels, or corporate jargon. Her voice, when it came, was steady, quiet power shaped by a life of being doubted, dismissed, and overlooked. "Some of you probably think I'm here because I was disrespected," she said. "But this isn't about my ego. It's about what this dealership, and what each of you, truly stands for." She gestured to the wide windows, where the late afternoon sun had begun to stream in golden bands across the tiles. "Out there, people will come through these doors every day. Black, white, Latino. Rich, poor. Dressed in suits or tank tops. Some will be first-time buyers. Some will be veterans. Some will walk in with a smile, others with a burden you can't see." She paused, her voice softer now. "And every one of them deserves the same thing, respect. Not because of what they can buy, but because of who they are." The words hit like slow-building thunder, not explosive, but reverberating deep within each person's conscience. Susan wiped her cheeks silently. Brandon kept his eyes locked on Vanessa, no longer out of guilt, but with a sense of reverence. Chloe leaned forward, clasping her hands tightly, as if holding on to something she'd never grasped before, humility. Vanessa gave them space, letting the silence breathe. Then she spoke again. "We've already started the retraining process. But change doesn't come from a workshop. It comes from how you answer this question, every single day you come to work: did I treat that person like they mattered? If the answer is no, then start over." She stepped away from the head of the table and walked slowly toward the doors. "And if you're wondering whether I believe in all of you, the answer is yes," she said without turning around. "Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here." That was the final note. No shouts. No slamming doors. No threats. Just the quiet impact of truth, and the challenge to live up to it. Vanessa exited the room with the same quiet dignity she entered with. But this time, not a single person looked at her with judgment or doubt. They looked at her with admiration. They had seen her strength, and now they felt it in themselves. Outside in the lobby, the sun painted everything in gold. Vanessa walked past the gleaming coupes and SUVs, her flip-flops softly slapping the polished floor. She paused near the same black coupe she'd admired earlier. No one stopped her this time. Behind her, the showroom had changed. Chloe was answering the phone with a genuine tone. Tyler spoke with a customer about pricing, more attentive than ever. Brandon reviewed a test drive schedule, jaw clenched, as if making a quiet vow to do better. And Susan, she stood by the conference doors, watching Vanessa. No clipboard. Just her hands folded, a deep breath in her chest, and the look of a woman who'd been humbled, and reborn. Vanessa gave her a nod, not of triumph, but of trust. Susan nodded back. Then Vanessa turned and walked toward the exit, the heavy glass door gliding open before her like the closing chapter of an old era. But before she stepped outside, she glanced over her shoulder. The staff had gathered near the reception desk, watching her. But this time, no one laughed. No one whispered. They just stood, a team learning to become something better. Vanessa smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, and stepped into the sunlight. At True Echo, we believe stories like Vanessa's aren't just fiction, they're reflections of real challenges faced every day. This wasn't just a tale of poetic justice. It was a story about courage, leadership, and the quiet strength it takes to change a culture from the inside out. As Vanessa said, respect is not a luxury. It's the minimum. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect, or if it reminded you of something you've experienced, we invite you to leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and help others discover the lesson buried within this story. And don't forget, subscribe to True Echo for more powerful, emotional stories that reveal hard truths, celebrate human resilience, and echo long after the final word.